Hey everybody, welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species, my favorite voice, recording in progress. Um, this is a really special interview. You know, they're all special, but this is a really special interview because the more I digest and comprehend and read about Adrienne Caldwell, uh, um, as I told her before we went on air, we've been Zooming now over the last few weeks, just kind of getting acquainted. Her journey basically is a movie, not a happy movie. You know, it's not the sound of music here. Her journey uh, from being born into a military family and a mother with schizophrenia and all the problems and the abuses, every kind of abuse you can imagine is what this young girl endured, Adrienne, and eventually she'll tell you all about this. But she's brilliant, you know, coming out of Duke and stuff. And now, of course, we're here also to discuss Unbroken Life Outside the Lines. Uh, you know, this powerful stuff. It's not Sound of Music. I said that again. This is powerful stuff, and her journey and her bravery, and the courage to be so forthrighteous about this, and talking about foster care, the things that we discussed. You know, I'm clueless. And by the way, we're all clueless. Everybody out there listening, not really understanding what foster care is all about, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Uh, um, and her foster mother, when she eventually wound up in foster care. I mean, there's so much. And actually, Adrian's lit my fire because I want to see if we can put together, with her help, to put together little panels to start talking about this stuff with people who've been through the system. And as I said, working for a billionaire for 25 years, he taught me to gotta really repeat things 10 times for it to sink in up here. So this monologue is done. It wasn't a real Johnny Carson monologue because it wasn't humorous. It was serious and heavy. So I'm now gonna turn it over to Adrian. And by the way, for everybody out there, this is really important stuff. You know, this is life, and it's somebody's life here, and people need to know we have a long way to go to fix things. And Adrian is right in the middle of all this, and that's what this is in part about, to fix. So, Adrian, take it away.
Thank you very much, Calvin. I appreciate your introduction. You are too kind. I am Adrienne Caldwell. I am the author of Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines. It's the story of my childhood, early childhood to early 20s, and this will serve as our trigger warnings as well as give the audience an idea of what I've endured and survived. I have been either the witness to or the victim of the sexual assault of a young girl, the drowning death of another child, emotional and physical abuse, extreme poverty, mental illness, homelessness, horrifically abusive foster care, bulimia, drug and alcohol addiction, pedophilia, death, suicide, and incest. So we may end up covering some of these topics, we may not, but just for the audience listening, please be advised these are sensitive topics. If you need to take a break, take a step away, completely understand. Please do not let this trigger or traumatize. So,
And also by prearrangement here and by putting our heads together, there's so much here. We'll see what we get to, and we'll kind of see how much we get to, because there's a bunch of things to discuss. This is not light stuff. As I said, it's life. It's a human life here, and how important that is. You know, there's an old saying, and I'm not sure actually where the saying comes from. It may actually come from the Quran, or it may come from the Bible. He or she who saves a life saves the world. And in part, that's what you're doing, you know. Uh, that's what you're doing. We're trying to save a life here. You are, not me. Okay. Um, we're gonna kind of frame this up here. Um, when you sit down and talk about your life today, not so much as survival, but as a kind of a reflection, um, what feels most alive in you right now?
My joy, my happiness. I am in a place right now in my life that I never could have dreamed of. I am so incredibly blessed and grateful for the life that I have now. So much so that if you had shown 15-year-old Adrienne the life that I have now, 15-year-old Adrienne would have called you a liar because where I was at that point in my life, I couldn't possibly even conceive of having a life that I do now. So I am alive. I feel vibrant, enthusiastic, grateful, blessed, and happy. I'm happy.
And we'll uncover elements from this unbelievable journey. It really is a movie, you know. Uh, uh, we got to talk about that, you know. Okay. Uh, Before we go into the story specifically, how do you like people to hold space for you? How do you want people to hold space for you when you're going to talk about trauma?
I want them to always know that ultimately, despite the horrible things that I've endured, my story is about hope. It's about resilience. It's about going from just surviving to thriving. And yes, my story is dark. I've been through very, very dark situations and circumstances, but ultimately it's that hope, that light inside that I carry forward. And I want my audience to never forget that this is about hope, overcoming, triumphing, and that it's possible no matter where you are. It is possible.
You just look at you and you realize it's possible. By the way, if you see me writing, it's because I am writing. I'm taking notes. You know, I'm taking notes on key elements of some of the things you're saying. I feel it's important to write because some of this has got to be remembered. So anyway, okay. Um, what does quote being seen unquote mean to you at this point in your life? Being seen.
Recognizing where I come from and what I have endured. Um, it's being seen. What does being seen mean? I hope that my readers can read without judgment. I have done some awful things, some things that I am deeply ashamed of. And it is my hope that the readers, the audience, can be gracious and understand that I have attempted to make amends for the parts where I've hurt people knowingly, willingly, and made decisions that broke up a family. And I I need people to understand that I spent the first half of my life not being a very good person, but I'm spending the second half of my life trying to make up for that.
Nicely said. Nicely said. Okay, moving on to the next stage. So you grew up in a military family where silence becomes part of survival, you know, silence. And I think a lot of us kind of stereotypically know that military families are about silence
Mm.
and stuff. We hear about that all the time. When did you first realize that that silence was actually costing you something
Mm.
back then, if you realize that at all?
So I think I realized the cost of silence really when I started writing this book about a year before I sat down to start writing. It was during that time that I was making amends, sending out messages, sending out letters to the people that I've hurt in my past. And in my book, I include the very first psychiatric evaluation that was ever done on me at the end of the book. I was 13 years old. And I one of the things that was stated in the evaluation that Adrienne very has no experience with healthy relationships and that she is likely to be exploitative and they nailed it. They got that evaluation 110% correct. But I broke my silence when I started writing this book. And when I discussed it with my family, I actually sat down with my uncle and interviewed him because it was my grandfather who was military Navy, retired Navy. And we did the interview. And at the end of the interview, he said, I don't want your book in my house. So that silence continues to this day.
Wow.
And that's,
Wow.
I can't judge him for it. I understand. He lived through hell. His father sexually abused my mother. And he was schizophrenic as well. And my uncle, I was honestly shocked when he agreed to let me interview him about his childhood and what it was like. Because in my family, we don't talk about the bad things. They get swept under the rug. My family doesn't even believe in mental illness, which I don't understand how they can't not believe it. My grandfather was schizophrenic. My mother was schizophrenic. I have a cousin who's schizophrenic. I don't know how much more proof he
Wow.
needs, but the the book is me breaking my silence. And it's, I don't want to say an act of bravery, but I am what I like the phrase radical honesty. I am radically honest and unbroken. And yeah, it's something the women in my family have been somewhat supportive of me sharing the story. I think it'd be absolutely fair to say that everyone in my family would have preferred for me to keep my mouth shut and to not write it. I think that's a fair statement.
Is this it's I don't know. Listen, I don't have military experience. My only military experience is watching World War II movies and Vietnam movies and stuff. But the whole code of military life, Army, Marines, whatever, is
Hmm.
built around silence.
Hmm.
Silence, and sure, some of the things. There's a million movies out now, dealing with silence. So
Well,
it's what your family was taught. I mean, it was handed
well,
down to them, right?
absolutely. And mental illness, especially, is still a taboo topic.
Wow.
So it's just not discussed. And I think they are gradually starting to understand the long-term impact that silence is having, not just on the soldiers and the veterans, but their families and their families' families, their grandchildren, and on. it's, I think we're at a point where it's just now becoming acceptable to talk about PTSD, which
Mm.
I do have. Um, but we have so much further to go. And my family, true military family, no exception.
Well,
We don't discuss the fact that my grandfather sexually abused my mother, that he
wow,
tried to abuse his other daughter, that he told his wife, my grandmother, to have sex with her sons, and that he told his sons to have sex with his daughters.
wow,
And yeah, he was very, very ill.
wow.
And I'll
Oof.
share something that is not in the book, and I have not told anyone in over 60 plus podcast interviews. I am the product of incest.
Mm.
My grandfather raped my mother, and the way I found out about it, I'll give the story. My husband wanted a genealogy test, and so I got that for him as a gift. And then I got an email saying, hey, you can get a second one half off. And I ordered one for me, and I got it, and I just put it down in a corner and I didn't do it. And my husband got his results, and I decided to do it. My mother had told me that I was Puerto Rican, that my father was from the island of Puerto Rico. He was at Fort Bragg when, that's where my grandfather was stationed, his last station. And so I grew up believing that I was half Puerto Rican. But that DNA test just sat there. And when I finally did it, my husband checks his email. I don't, or I used to not. And after a couple of weeks, I asked him, I said, hey, did you ever get those results? And he said, yeah, I did. And the results showed that I'm 100% English Scottish, that I am not Puerto Rican, like my mother told me. And I never met my father, have never been inclined to. And so realizing that I wasn't half Puerto Rican, the idea crept in that I might be the product. I knew my grandfather sexually abused my mother, and the idea was in the back of my mind.
Oof.
And I went to my uncle, the same one that I interviewed. He's the only one still living out of the four children that my grandparents had. And I asked him if he would do a DNA test with me. So this is my uncle, and we do the DNA test, and it comes back that there is a 97.3% chance that we are half siblings. So my uncle is my brother, and I have never shared this publicly. I am
Wow,
choosing to share with you. And it might make it to book two, because
wow.
unfortunately things didn't magically turn into roses and sunshine after the way I let Unbroken Life Outside the Lines end leads you to believe that the rest of my life went swell.
Wow,
And that's not the truth. I kept getting the hits kept on coming.
wow.
But that was something that I'm still struggling to reconcile. And I
Oof.
I don't know. It blows your mind. It occurred to me to ask, what's worse than being the child of a rape victim? And I know the answer. It's when the rapist is the person's father. That's worse. So.
I don't, you know what? I don't even know what to say to that. I don't know what to say.
You don't have to say
No, there's
anything.
nothing to say. There's nothing to say. I did some, I said, I did, some genetic. testing on my own, and different results than you, of course. Um, I mean, I kind of know that my ancestors came from Russia, and I told you
Okay.
about my grandfather, who I'm spiritually, who's
Hmm.
in my life every day. But and I had been to Sedona near you down in Arizona. Actually, I went to Sedona once when I had a meeting in Houston.
Okay.
You're from Houston, and I have this great affection with Sedona, and I've been there 12 times, and I love it
Wow.
because it's so spiritual, and I'm comfortable there, and it makes me better. And
Hmm.
so one time I stayed at the park in Houston, great hotel. I don't know if it's still there, but it was wonderful. And then I told my wife, I'm one state away from Sedona. How about if I just go there a few days? You're okay with that? She said, yeah, sure. Anyway, I went there, and it's steeped in such Native American history and culture.
Hmm.
And on the way up to Sedona, um, there's some cave dwellings from the Sinagua
Hmm.
Indians who used to live there many, many, many years ago, and they just disappeared. Nobody knows how and why. And they
Right.
built their cave, no tents, but they built their homes into the mountains. It was like the first
Right.
condo, ever. Uh,
Right.
and I'm just absorbing. I spent a few days there and loving it. And I bought a CD. There's a little village there called Talapaki, and it's run by Native American, and they sell all Native American things. And there was a guy selling a CD, Coyote Oldman. I remember all this stuff. And it was native Incan panpipes and stuff, and I bought it, and I was so fixated and hooked on this music, and that's all I would listen to. And sometimes, once I remember years ago, I brought it home and I listened to it all the time. It literally lifts my soul and takes me somewhere, and
Isn't it amazing how music can do that?
powerful.
Whenever I get down, I use music to lift me up.
It's the most amazing. Funny, I've been interviewing composers recently from Garden State Film Festival. We talk about the power that they have to lift and motivate and inspire. So one day years ago, I was listening to Coyote Oldman, and it was so powerful. And my poor wife out there in the kitchen has to bear the brunt of all these emotional
Hmm.
things with me. And I listened to it, and I went into the kitchen. I said, "You're not going to understand, but I got to go to Sedona tomorrow." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I just have to go. I'm listening to this music. I have to go." And I went. A couple of days later, I spent a few days out there and did my thing. Bottom line, after all this went down, and I couldn't explain this thing I had with Native American music and culture, and the Native American women who were selling little
Hmm.
uh, jewelry, trinkets, and stuff, and just how I felt, a nice feeling and a warm feeling, and trying to appreciate their journey, not an
Hmm.
easy journey. And then it's a year or two or three later, I did me and my son, because my son's adopted, and he needed to know, and I wanted to know a little bit more. Anyway, he's great and he knows his stuff, and my thing came back. One of the stranger, and I've had some strange things in my life,
Hmm.
as you know, but it came back that between 1670 and 1750, I may have had a Native American ancestor.
Mm.
Duh. How's that? How? When everybody presumably came from
Beautiful.
Russia.
Right.
So that was so fit, but different than what you did. Different results.
My
Uh,
great grandmother was Cherokee.
is that right?
Yes.
Wow. So maybe we're related.
Never know.
You never know. Never know. I never pursued that enough to find out, well, what Native American tribe and stuff, and it was fun just to kind of try to figure out how that all came down.
Yeah,
And I love
absolutely.
that culture, and I love them, and I've watched enough movies to know injustice and stuff. But anyway, uh, uh,
My
anyway,
uncle
yeah,
dresses up. We have something called Texas Renaissance Festival, and he dresses up in full costume, and he has the entire Indian headdress, the full
wow.
feather,
With
and he
respect,
wears,
though, he does
oh,
that
of course,
with
it's
respect.
heritage.
Yeah,
It's part of our family's
yeah.
heritage.
Okay.
So he wears it, and complete strangers stop him and ask to take photos with
Oh,
him.
cool.
Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool.
So,
Okay, moving on. Um, as a child, how did you make sense out of the word love, the sense of love, um, when it was kind of mixed in with fear? So you have love as a child and you have fear as a child. How do you kind of reconcile love and fear?
so my grandfather moved the family. So my grandmother, the four children, well, they were teenagers, early adults at that point, to Houston and then promptly abandoned them. So my grandmother stayed home and watched me, took care of me, while the four siblings went out and worked because they no longer had a breadwinner. They no longer had an income. And my grandmother adored me, absolutely adored me. And she shielded me from my schizophrenic, physically abusive mother. She kept my mother in line.
Wow.
And I knew I knew from the age of about four, maybe five, that there was something wrong with my mother. I didn't know the word schizophrenic. I couldn't identify it, but I knew that she was bizarre and she was different. And my grandmother intervened. And one of the most significant losses in my life was her death when I was 7 years old. Now, I knew my mother was odd, crazy, if you will. And losing my grandmother meant I lost my guardian, I lost my protector. But I always knew that my mother loved me. I was scared of her, but hell, I was scared of most of the members of my family. My uncle, whom I love, and he served as a father figure for me. I was 5 years old. I standing at the back of a car, Houston, middle of Houston summer, hot as hell. And I talked back to him at five and immediately got backhanded. Just no hesitation, just whack. And I've been scared. I'm still scared of him a little bit, but I've always known that I was loved. And what I didn't understand with my mother, I didn't understand this until my early 20s, was that she was sick, that her behavior and the beatings, that's what she knew. That's what she grew up with, in addition to the sexual abuse. And even my grandmother beat the four children. So physical violence was how my mother, that's the example, the role model that she saw for parenting. So in my mother's mind, that was the way to parent. And to be candidly honest, I was cruel to my mother. Starting at the age of five, she was odd, she was different. She, I resented her for her being crazy. And, things like trying to make me eat beans with every meal and telling me, this came a little later, but saying that Mick Jagger was not only my father, but her father as well, and that David Bowie was my brother's father. So I resented her deeply, and she made me feel um, that I just I knew how damaged she was and how messed up she was in the head. And I talked back to her. I argued with her. I was ugly. To everybody else, I was this gorgeous little blonde-haired angel with the pigtail ponytails, and everybody adored me except to my mother. I was malicious with her. It's not an excuse to beat your children. It's never okay to beat a child, but I definitely deserved consequences because I treated her very badly. Very.
But you were treated badly, so you were giving back the way you were treated, and you're just a kid, and
I
you
put on a performance for the other adults in my life. You
yeah,
know, straight A's, perfect behavior in school, just the model child,
mhm.
except my mother. And
But
it's
deservedly,
because
listen, she's schizophrenic, and you 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 can't put your hand and your finger and your understanding on that, but there's something wrong, and you sensed it as a child. Obviously, you had to sense it as a
I
child.
did.
Uh, um, something maybe we can discuss it in a panel as we're gonna. But I've observed as a grandfather, and it's a wonderful place to be a grandparent because you hang around for a few hours and they're gone.
Right.
You wash a few dishes, you pick up a few toys, and they're gone.
Right.
And so the quality time is perfect. 3 or 4 hours, it's perfect, and then it's over.
Right.
You're back to watching the 10 o'clock news and stuff. But what I've observed, and I marvel at this, Adrian, is what you put in, you get out, and then some.
Mhm.
I marvel at it. I want to write about it one day. It's the most amazing thing. The love, because the love that you put in, you're getting that out tenfold. And
Exactly.
it's just the most, the growing mind of a child is one of the most remarkable things. It's such a joy under the right circumstances. And so I look back on what you endured. It's a wow, and I can't conceive. Uh, we raised our son. You know, I mentioned, I wrote about the fact that I never heard my father say he loved me, never
Right.
touched me. But he was a most amazing, wonderful, kind man, but came from his own world without a lot of love because there were six boys living in one room, and grandparents living, his parents living in two separate bedrooms. So there's no
Mhm.
love. It was a prearranged marriage. That's the way they did it back in 1895,
Mhm.
whatever. But anyway, the point being, so I know I needed to hear love. I never got it. So when my son was born, he had to hear it 15 times a day. And and it's so interesting because that's what he got. 15, I love you, son. Love you, love you, love you, love you. Hug and a kiss. And so his kids, because that's all he got,
Right.
his kids are just filled with love.
Yes.
Just
And
love.
it's amazing the generational cycles that get passed down. And it sounds like you broke that cycle. You
Yeah,
did not do what your dad did to
not at
you.
all.
You changed.
I was smart
And
enough.
it's now the cycle that's being passed down is sharing that love,
Yeah,
embracing that love.
wonderful.
And I've tried to do the same with my daughter. Um, when she was first born, I didn't think that I could take care of her, that I could raise her. In a psychiatric evaluation, I'm quoted as saying, I'm terrified of having children because I'm scared I will do to them what was done to me. And I made a conscious choice to give my daughter the childhood that I didn't have.
You're
So
smart.
yeah, we're breaking cycles.
You're
We
smart.
both are.
Well, because you're
Thank you.
smart and you are smart, and that's what you did. Um, uh, in Unbroken Life Outside the Lines, which I want to hold up again. Um, by the way, I'm going to have the book on Kindle by the end of the day. Uh, it's black and white. Is that's by design?
It's
Creating emotion.
monochromatic.
Okay, well, I
Um,
call it black and white, monochromatic, but uh,
there's a little bit of green,
okay,
but
not much,
no,
not much, but that is a mood
yes,
instiller, isn't it?
yes. It was a very conscious choice. My brother actually took that photograph.
Was that right?
Yes, and he gave me the rights to the collection. It's a collection of photographs that he took when he was in Vermont, and I have the rights to them.
Okay,
So if there's ever a book two, it will be with one of his photographs.
okay. Keep it in the family. Um, anyway, in Unbroken and Life Outside the Lines, you revisit the CPS files
Hmm.
and psychiatric records.
Hmm.
What was it like to read your life reduced to clinical language? Uh,
Calvin, it was so hard. So I got my file from CPS, Children's Protective Services, when I was 20 years old. And it's this giant box with two huge stacks of paper, everything that had ever been written about me. The
wow,
psychiatric evaluations, the
wow.
therapist notes, the social worker notes, the court documents, everything. I have it all, and it will be compiled into a companion text that goes along with Unbroken one day for use in the classroom. People studying to be therapists, counselors, psychologists. I've had two interns, now counselors, say that it helped them understand firsthand childhood trauma, that it helped them see things from that child's perspective, something that they didn't have the firsthand account. And with the clinical documentation, Calvin, it took me 20 years before I was able to go through that file. 20 years. The box just sat under my couch. And I tried. Every 3 or 4 years, I would get the box out and start going through the papers. And the thing that angered me the most and that was so hard was reading the reports that the foster mother, the horrifically abusive foster mother I lived with,
The
in the
bitch
book,
from
I
hell,
call
is that
her.
what you called her? The bitch from hell? See, I
You
did my
got it.
homework.
I wasn't going to say the B word, but yeah, TBFH. That's the only name she has in the book, TBFH, because what she did was so horrific. And reading her reports, where it made it sound like everything was fine, just
Oh,
reading her lies,
oh,
I just I
wow.
was beyond furious. And it was it was incredibly difficult, Calvin, incredibly.
Did anybody
But I
ever tell
will
you,
say,
Adrian, not to? Did anybody ever advise you, like a therapist or somebody said, don't read it? Did anybody
mm,
ever tell you not to look at those files? No, you weren't
no.
told that.
I couldn't do it emotionally. It was too triggering. It brought everything back to the surface to read it. And I actually got very angry about the foster mother, and I reached out to about 50 lawyers. I reached out to the state and reported it, to the counties and reported it. First, to make sure that she no longer has any foster children, and second, to try to see some sort of consequences for what she did to me. And to put it in perspective, my schizophrenic mother, who beat me regularly, I've never had a nightmare about her, But
Wow.
the foster mother, the bitch from hell, I still have nightmares about that woman, and I wake up crying because what she did to us was so horrific. And it wasn't physical or sexual abuse, it was psychological, emotional abuse. She dehumanized us. We had to sit on the floor, not the furniture. We had to sit on the floor like animals. We had separate, and when I say we, I'm referring to the myself and the other foster girls. We had separate dishes and separate silverware, separate food. We didn't eat at the same table. When I washed their dishes, I had to use bleach. There was one full bathroom, so one bathroom with a shower and a toilet in it. And the last foster girl to shower in the evening had to clean the tub with a bleach cleaner before anyone from her family would get in.
Oh, wow.
And
Jeez.
some of the comments that she made, I was trying on swimsuits one time and I came out to show her and she looked at me and said, "Your thighs are fat. I'm surprised you haven't started throwing up to lose weight." And that started a battle with bulimia
Oy.
that continues to this day. I still struggle with it. And I went to a psychiatrist at the age of 15 while living with her, and they put me on medication. And to me, that meant I was damaged and defective. And I went back to the bitch from hell's house. I took my razor apart and I cut my wrists. And when she saw it, her words to me were, "You didn't even do it right. You're supposed to cut along the vein, not
Oh,
across."
that's what she told you?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
what she told me. My first suicidal.
Wow. Wow. Is she
Yeah,
still
she
in
was.
business? Is she still in business? Is she still around?
I believe she is. I believe she's in a different county. I have made a report to that county. I heard that she lost her license to foster girls. I don't know that for sure.
Oof.
And being in a different county, she might have been able to get another license. But another rumor, again, this is all rumor, I know nothing for sure. The last I heard was that a girl living with her committed suicide. And that's why the bitch from
Wow.
hell lost her license.
Wow. Wow.
And I believe it. I believe wholeheartedly that a girl would commit suicide while living with that
Oof.
woman.
Wow. Wow. Um,
Yeah.
um, so you're right about foster care as another form of trauma. We've heard that word a few times already. Um, what do people who have never experienced that? Uh, what do they misunderstand the most? Because I think there's so much misunderstanding about the whole institution of foster care. Nobody has a clue what goes
Right.
on.
Most, I think when most people think of foster care, they think of two professional parents who happen to have room in their home, in their heart, to take in children, and that those children are brought into the family and treated as family members. And that's just not the reality. As we were discussing before we started recording, I'd say the majority of foster parents do this as a vocation because they have no other skills. They have room in their home and they put as many girls or boys as the state will legally allow them to have in their home, and they're doing it for a paycheck. And Calvin, I don't think that's inherently wrong. But if they're going to treat it as a vocation, as a profession, then they should be licensed, monitored, and trained. They need to be trained to deal with children. For a child to be removed from a home, that child had to experience significant abuse. We are talking about truly damaged children, and they're being placed in homes with foster parents who have no idea how to deal with that. And these foster parents aren't upper middle class, well-to-do. They didn't, they often themselves had dysfunctional childhoods. They haven't seen healthy role models for parenting and relationships and communication. So not only is that kid not getting the help they need to deal with the trauma they endured from their parent or parent, but they're being placed with people who don't know how to help these kids properly. And if they're going to do it like a job, let's expect them to train like it's a job.
It is a job.
Learn those skills.
It is a job. It's a human life. It's a human life because especially at such a young age, what you put in, it's going to come out, and it's going to affect a human life, how precious a human life is. Um,
And the younger kids that are in foster care, they have a better chance because hopefully they were pulled out of their home early enough before the trauma was truly compounded. But the kids coming into foster care, 10, 11, 12 years old, they're deeply damaged and they need help. Like, in my opinion, any child, not any, every foster child needs to see a psychiatrist, needs to have a therapist. These should be automatic.
if this is it's not a crazy question, but if the system had listened to the child you were, if the system had listened, if the system had been responsive, if the system really worked, what it's a silly question to ask, but what would have changed? Well, your whole life would have changed, I guess.
The bitch from hell would have never been allowed to
Yeah.
have children. And I was placed in what's called therapeutic foster care. I had a therapist coming to the house every other week. But the way the system is set up, so first of all, my foster parent was not, she did not work for the county or the state. She worked for a company that contracted with the state, and that was a for-profit corporation. Their business model was to take foster children and to make money off of them.
Wow.
And that breaks the accountability. The bitch from hell was accountable to a for-profit corporation. And the way it's structured, the higher the emotional, psychological needs the child, the more damaged the child, the higher the paycheck. So the foster parent is disincentivized from helping that child recover and improve because they take a pay cut if that kid gets better.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's asinine. It's
Wow.
it's crazy. It should be the exact opposite.
Wow.
And these are the things that most people don't know about the
Wow.
system.
Oh, it's funny. In the 1900s, they did all kinds of exposés, on women working, in a shirt factory, and it goes on fire,
Mhm.
and the
The
triangle shirt.
jungle.
Yeah, 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 and as I'm listening to you, I'm saying to myself, it's what I'm listening to is on the same par, and here we are in 2026, and that stuff still goes on, and it's at the same
Yes, it does.
par, it's trying to fix, and I'm just kind of looking at the world, and I said this not too long ago. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about mass shootings, which happen every day.
Hmm.
And when I grew up in the 60s, it was a different world.
Right.
And we had one mass shooting that I know of, and I remember it actually took place in Texas. There's a guy named Charles Whitman climbed the top of a tower and started shooting. It was in the 60s, started shooting.
UT Austin, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So the point being, it, it, there's so much violence, and there's so much violence in our world, and that's getting, it's like you're making a cocktail and you're shaking it and you're stirring it, with foster care and violence, and there's just so many things impacting the development of a normal, happy child. Uh, um, you should know. Uh, you should know. I've got 2 pages of notes already on you. In addition to what, so you're doing good. I think let's take a slight break. I want to go off topic. A couple of
Okay.
off-topic questions, just to take a
Yeah.
deep breath.
Yeah.
So here goes, Adrian. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with, and it could be a couple people. There's no rules here. Uh, I got this question from Barbara Walters. I like Barbara Walters.
I would love to have had the chance to spend a day with Norma Jean, Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, wow. It's funny you said that.
Why?
Wow. Wow. No, it's real funny you said that. It's rather haunting.
Tell me.
Well, I'm going to tell you because um, this morning, I interviewed. His name is Remy Gangarosa and Jason Pelsey. They have I have to give you the right. Shoot, I have to give you the right. I have to find. Oh gosh, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. Okay. Here, it's funny you said that. Nothing surprises me about my life that you said that. This is unrehearsed. Yeah, they worked on this movie for 10 years. This was a passion project of love and respect
Right?
for Marilyn Monroe, and their movie's called Marilyn's Dark Paradise. And,
Oh,
and I
wow.
just put it up on my channel on Conversation with Calvin. The interview I did with them and their story, their 10-year, obviously it wasn't 10 years solid doing this, but it's been a 10-year project of love. And it explores a time traveler coming back and hanging out with Marilyn. And the actress looks just like Marilyn. I saw the trailer. And the whole story is haunting
Yeah.
and magnificent and haunting to the point where they're hoping they could channel Marilyn herself, who was a genius, brilliant, brilliant woman, just got caught up with the crazy world that she was living in the world of misogyny and all
Well,
kinds of
and
bad things.
her mother was
Right.
mentally ill.
You're right.
Marilyn Monroe, Norma Jean went into foster care.
You're right. Isn't that interesting? Is that why you said that?
I've always been fascinated with her.
Wow.
Um, I've read Blonde,
Wow.
one of the many books about her.
Wow.
And um, yeah, I wouldn't say she's a role model, but I think she would be a fascinating individual to spend a day with.
Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting you said that. Just this morning, it got loaded, the interview I did with them. It was one of the most fascinating interviews in the music that Jason Pelsey composed, won an award in the Garden State Film Festival. Something, it was called, I think, Norma Jean, the
Yeah,
song. And here you are telling me that. So wow. Uh, it's strange. Life's, is strange.
it's more than that. There's
Uh,
something there.
oh, I know that. That's why I write books to talk
Yeah.
about that spiritual stuff. But that's wow. Okay. Um, one more. Do you have any favorite movies? I mean, it's a
I
wide.
do. I do. So I love Pulp Fiction and Fight Club
Okay.
was definitely one of I was in a dark period in my early 20s and I just watched Fight Club over and over again. But a movie that that it impacts me greatly is Girl Interrupted. Have you heard of it? Have you seen it? Angelina Jolie and I cannot remember the other girl.
I've heard about it. I've heard about it.
Yeah. A girl 18 years old ends up going to a psychiatric hospital and all all the stories, events that occur. It's it's a haunting movie, but I could relate to a lot of it.
Okay.
So,
Pulp Fiction, I watch when I'm flicking and it's on,
oh,
I just stop. But that dance scene, you know that dance scene with
yes,
Travolta
yes,
and Uma is one of the great. I just read something last week about that. It's one of the great dance scenes in the history of motion picture. You know, when they're
absolutely.
doing that, the twist thing. Wow. Sheer genius.
Yes,
Yeah, sheer genius. Not a happy movie. Um,
no. A
not a
happy
happy.
movie,
Give me a happy movie.
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
No,
Okay.
no, no, I haven't. I haven't.
It's a
Uh,
trip.
no, I'm stuck. I'm stuck. Like with Casablanca.
Hmm.
I'm stuck. I can't. From here to eternity, I can watch that once a week. The Sting. I just love old movies, old westerns. I just love old movies, and I'm just stuck in watching them again into The Godfather, again and again and again.
Fantastic movies.
Yeah, yeah, and they're wonderful, amazing movies. And there's a whole bunch that I watch. I've got my thing up there filled. Um, it's funny. Uh, I won't mention names, but some years ago, I do the exercise bike, and it's very boring.
Hmm.
And so I started ordering movies from Amazon. From Here to Eternity, It's a Wonderful Life,
Hmm.
East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, Gentleman's Agreement, The Searchers, one of the great westerns of all time with John Wayne, and all these old movies. And that's when I'm on the exercise bike, I used to go on for 90 minutes. I'd watch, uh, and then I won't mention names, but then some years ago, when I was doing my journalism, I got a chance to interview one of rock and roll's top stars' best friend.
Okay.
Uh, and and the interview came about because my publisher. Anyway, the point being, we go, ring the bell, we walk in his apartment, and he's a busy guy, and every 5 minutes he's getting called away on another phone call. But
Right.
one time he went to another room to talk on the phone, and my publisher called me over and pointed to a note that this rocker had written. It was under glass, had written to his agent, and the note was, get me these 50 movies I want to watch to help me write lyrics.
Oh, wow.
So I took a picture of it,
Hmm.
and it's written in this rocker's handwriting. I took a picture of it, and when we were driving back, he was driving me back home. I looked at the picture, and I said, "Oh my God!" Of course, when I got home and I blew it up, because basically the 50 movies he wanted his agent to get him were the 50 movies that I ordered from Amazon to keep me occupied when I'm on the exercise bike,
Right.
almost verbatim. And
Wow.
thought that was very haunting. And
Yeah.
and I have I have the list here. I saved it. Oh, here.
So the one movie that I'm boycotting and will forever boycott. So my
Yeah.
name's Adrian. I honest to
Oh,
God
Rocky,
think, yes,
Rocky,
Rocky.
Joe
You
Adrian.
know that? Yes, that right there. People have been doing that to me, yo, Adrian,
Oh
since I
God.
was little, and they all think it's the first time I've heard it and that
Oh,
it's hilarious. And sadly, I think I really was named after Adrian from the movie Rocky. because it came out in 77 and I was born in 79.
Oh, wow.
So, but I
Wow.
refused to
Oh,
watch
wow.
it.
That's very funny. Funny stuff. One more question, because
Yeah,
we ain't never going to finish what we have to, which means you're going to come back.
I'd love to.
Hopefully, you'll come back and we'll finish. Um, anyway, the last thing for this session, um, uh, you and I've observed this. You're brilliant, and you describe you are, and just listening
Thank
to you, and
you.
I marvel at your grasp and knowing your background. It's hard to process brilliance with that background because it's just hard. But you're brilliant, and you've written a book about
Thank
that.
you.
So you described as your mind is both brilliant and haunted.
Yes.
Um, uh, how did that kind of intelligence, even though you didn't necessarily know you were hugely intelligent, become both a refuge
Hmm.
and also a burden? And it's an interesting question. The brilliance is a refuge. It's also a burden. How do you deal with that?
So school was my escape. It was the one place in life where I knew the rules, the decorum, what was acceptable, what wasn't. It was structured, and I thrived in that environment. Very much a people pleaser, very much a gold star, pat on the head kind of person. And I use school, specifically reading, as an escape from my life. It's how I survived the life that I had through escapism whenever I could. I would go to the library before school every morning, and it rarely took me more than 2 days to finish a book. I
Wow.
went through all, the Blue Bonnet books. I just the librarians knew me, and I just went through the books because it allowed me to live outside of the horrors that I was enduring in my home life. And my mother, schizophrenic, physically abusive mother, she stopped one time and she looked at me and she said, Adrienne, school is the way that you are going to get out of this life. Getting A's will get you out of this life. And when I say this life, we were living in government housing in an all black apartment complex. We were the only white family. We had no furniture, a black and white 12-inch TV on an egg crate.
Wow.
I had a mattress on the floor for a long time. My mother just slept on the floor. I mean, I'm talking abject poverty, like washing your clothes in the bathtub because we couldn't afford the laundromat.
Mm,
So
wow.
I I read. I ruined my eyesight. Every night I would go to the window. There was a lamp post outside our building, and I would read by moonlight and lamp, the light, and would just inhale these books. I'm an obsessive reader. So it it became a refuge. It also sheltered me, and it gave me the confidence and the approval that I was seeking and not getting from my life. Now, as far as it being a burden, I don't think it ever really was. In my book, and as you mentioned Duke earlier, I was selected Duke Talent Identification Program. They identified students, high scoring students, and I would go to camps at Northwestern in Louisiana and do a year's worth of high school work in 3 weeks.
Wow.
And I did that 3 summers in a row. And the only way I could do it was by getting the scholarships. I was living with the bitch from hell. And the only way that I would have been able to attend, CPS wasn't going to pay for it, was to get a scholarship. So I learned the art of telling a sob story very early on so that I did get that scholarship. And another opportunity that I had, which actually got me out of the bitch from hell's home, it's a congressional scholarship where that I received to do a 1 year foreign exchange to Germany.
Wow.
So there are 300 Americans selected every year to go live abroad in Germany and basically act as American ambassadors. And I was selected to participate in that program. So my intelligence opened doors for me that I otherwise wouldn't have had. And that year in Germany, and I cover it in Unbroken Life Outside the Lines, that year in Germany changed the trajectory of my life. I was with an amazing host family, a mother and a father with their 5-year-old daughter. And coming from the hell that I was living at TBFH's into this healthy, normal, fun, I got to witness relationships and communication skills that I had never seen before modeled in front of me. And they took me in. And I'm still in touch with them. I send flowers to my host mom, Angelica Ranka,
Wow.
every Christmas. And when I go to Frankfurt for the Frankfurt Book Convention, I am ending my trip by going back to my host family, whom I have not seen for 25 years.
Wow.
So, and when I told them I was coming back to Germany, it was immediately tell me the dates, we'll get you from the airport, we'll drop you back at the
Wow.
airport, come be
So
with us.
nice. So
And
nice.
yes, and it was a remarkable year. I transformed in that year. Learning the language, incredibly difficult. And I lived in northern Germany where it's cold, it rains, you eat a lot of fish because it's on the North Sea, completely unlike southern Germany, what you think of Bavaria. Not like that at all. And it took 4 or 5 months before I was able to become friends with the students in my class. But now, my best friend from school, I let her know that I'm coming to Germany and she lives in Berlin. And she said, I will meet you in Berlin. I will meet you back at your host families.
So
I
nice.
will meet you wherever so that we can reconnect. They will be in my life forever.
So nice.
So, yeah, and
So nice.
coming from my background, I had never experienced those things. I ended up losing 30 pounds. I got a pixie cut and dyed my hair platinum blonde. I got my belly button pierced. But I was treated like an adult. I was treated with respect, with kindness, with love,
Wow.
things that I had never experienced
Wow.
before. And I give them credit for me being as functional as I am. They taught me what family was supposed to look like,
Wow.
and I loved them.
Wow.
And that is one of the single greatest blessings of my life.
Wow. Wow. All right. Nice way to finish this segment. Really nice way. Uh, so, Adrienne Caldwell, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here, for sharing this stuff, which we're going to do more. You're going to come back and we'll kind of do more of this. There's so much more to do. It's so important. It's every day, it's everywhere, it's everywhere. Um, I think that's a song, everywhere. Maybe it's Fleetwood Mac, I'm not sure. whatever. You're gonna come back, or we're also gonna put together, I think, a panel to discuss upbringing and Forster and stuff, because the theory is the more you all talk, hopefully that message gets out to people who can affect change.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you, Calvin, for having me on your show and for giving my voice a platform. So
Yeah,
thank you very much.
my pleasure. And this is it's such an important platform. Again, you know what, Edwin, you're talking about the stuff that you went to, and I can't help but look at my grandchildren and what they are, who they are. You know, we had a sleepover a couple of weeks ago, and I must have heard from them 30 times in the day and a half they were here. Love you, Grandpa. Love you, Grandpa. Love
Mhm.
you, Grandpa. And it's only because they've only gotten love and that they give back.
Right.
And it's so wonderful. A child is such a miracle of creation, and I say that all the time. So hearing your story I'm moved and inspired to do stuff with you to just raise awareness of the deficiencies in our systems, of which there are many all over the place. So I'm going to stop recording, letting everybody know officially we'll be back. We'll figure out the time and the date and stuff. Uh, Thank you so much. That actually made my day.
Thank you, Calvin. I'd like to take just a second to let people know where to find me. I'm Unbroken Caldwell. That's my website. I've posted my CPS case files, psychiatric evaluations, therapist notes, social worker notes. There are letters that my best friend, I've known him since eighth grade, I wrote to him while I was in Germany, 16 years old. Those letters he kept for 30 years,
Wow,
and those are on the website, photos.
wow,
And I'm Unbroken Caldwell on Facebook, Insta, and LinkedIn. So, and yes, Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines. It's on Kindle. You can get it in paperback. It will be in hardback. And anyone who is struggling, please reach out to me. I do answer, I do respond. And Calvin, just thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
well, my
It's been
pleasure.
truly a privilege.
Yep, same here for me too. Thank you, Adrian. I'm going to stop recording. Don't leave. We'll do a 2-minute wrap. Thank you, thank you, thank you.